Hello, welcome. This is Daniel Piatek, and I want to talk to you why who you really are is desperately needed so that we can evolve this planet and this human society and culture that we're living in. So let's talk for a little bit about what the hell I mean by that and why I might make such an audacious statement about your life, about my life, about each of us individually, and the importance that each of us play in the unfolding event that we're now deep into, really diving into on this planet, of a profound remaking of how we see, experience, interpret life, and how we create the structures and forms of our life here together. So my name is Daniel Piatek, and I am a spiritual guide, mentor, teacher, and I work with people to help them to release who they really are, release their unique genius from the layers and layers of conditioning that's deep in us that keeps us stuck in old ways of thinking and old ways of being and prevents us from being able to really come into who we truly are in our lives. So it is possible actually to work outside of this. So one of the movies I love that kind of shows this in a way that's quite interesting is The Matrix. The idea that unknowingly we live inside of a world that seems to be one way, but is completely actually another. So that's true on more levels, I think, than many of us have dared to believe. And I think that's becoming clear more and more as we've moved into these crazy times that we're all in. But I'm going to speak not so much about what's happening out there, but what's happening in here in us, and why it's important for us to do what is needed to free what I call our unique genius, our divine essence, the spark of the divine that we are, that is here, that came into this body with us, as us. And it's our job to free it more and more so that it can come and live through us, live as us, and act out into the world. So I wanted to talk today about the idea that we are in a time of profound, profound, profound change. So as I see it, the reason this is happening is that it's desperately needed. One way to see this is that we have taken this experiment that we've been in, and we've taken it as far as it can go with this set of values, with this internal wiring of how we see who we are, how we see the other is, how we see how we create life here together. It's taken us, well, beyond where it serves us. And now we have all of these structures of organizations, of ways of acting in the world, which now have become malignant, which are creating and have been creating profound problems for us in the world. And then we have this virus come in the middle of it, which is kind of, in a certain way, maybe the catalyst for a profound shift of the recognition that things are not as they seem, we're not as they seem, and do not need to continue to be as they have been. So we often need catalysts in our life. That's one thing that I provide to the people that I work with, is a catalyzing influence in their life. And we seem to need that. So the catalyst we've been given, maybe this virus, maybe there's more to come, but there is a shift that's needed. And as I see it, it's a shift that happens internally first to change our beingness, who it is that we think we are, how it is we see ourselves, how we interpret our experience of life, and how we choose to take action into the world. That's an entirely internal process. And it's going through a huge, huge change. This requires a change for each of us, well, for those who submit to it, those who engage in it, let's say, but it's an entirely personal one. It's a personal journey. And I want to frame it today in this conversation in the terms of evolution, evolving ourself. Evolving ourself. So we've been doing that each individually as we've grown up in these bodies in this life. We go through these changes as we grow up. The psychologists will talk about it in terms of childhood development. You have other people that talk about it in terms of adult development. There are these distinct stages that we go through as we shift from one set of values, one way of seeing the world, into another. And not everybody goes through them in the same way or gets to the same place. This is one way to see why we have these radical differences between groups of people in the world, different levels of development, which means different set of values, different worldview that they're living in. And we're needing a shift into a very different set of values so that we can begin to create a world that actually works for more and more of us, and not continuing to create the old that is not. So let's talk about evolution for a second. So evolution, meaning the evolution, talk about the evolution of physical form, the evolution of our ways of thinking, evolution in terms of this development that I just mentioned. You could think of development through our lifetime as an evolution that happens inside of us. And evolution proceeds in the direction where three things are increasing. Three things are becoming greater. The first is increasing consciousness, increasing awareness, increasing ability to perceive, to make sense of. So if you look over the course of, you think of human history from what we know of it, we might say, well, humans have gotten smarter. And that could be argued in a lot of ways, right? But the idea, more aware, more conscious. The second of three is increasing complexity. Evolution is moving into the direction of increasing consciousness and increasing complexity. The form and structure as we move on becomes more complex. So water, rocks, single-celled organisms, multi-celled organisms, amphibians, etc., increasing complexity that then takes the form as these biological creatures and beings then created into the world, increasing complexity. You look over what we know of history as we look back, and even in our own times, for those of us that have lived here for a number of decades, in this lifetime, life has gotten more complex. So evolution seems to head in the direction of more complexity. The third, and this is the main part of what I want to kind of really bring home today in our conversation, is evolution moves in the direction of increased uniqueness. Uniqueness. So in order to form beings or structures, organizations, systems in the world, in order to do that, we need more and more unique pieces that begin to work together. So two levels of the same example are, when the first cell was created, it was created by single-celled organisms, the kind of things that you looked at in a microscope in biology lab in a high school, somehow found a way to work together as one. So one organism became the nucleus. Another organism became the mitochondria. another organism became, etc. And then at some point it creates this larger whole, a more complex form made up of smaller, unique pieces that's able to hold more consciousness, more awareness, more ability to sense, to do, to act in the world. Same in the human body. Uniqueness. We want a brain cell to be really damn good at being a brain cell. We want it to be really good at its uniqueness, and the liver cell, etc. And that individual uniqueness working together creates a form, a whole human body that is more complex, right? A human body altogether, it's safe to say, is more complex than the liver, than a liver cell. And this human body, because of the uniqueness of all the different cells, the different organs, etc., is able to be more conscious. So I think it's fair enough to say that a human being is able to embody more consciousness, more awareness than the liver is. And the liver more so than a liver cell, an individual liver cell. So evolution moves in the direction of more consciousness, more complexity, more uniqueness. So as I see it, in order for us in this time that we're going through now, which we are in it, and we are going to be getting more and more in it as life moves on over these next years, decades, I don't know, of a reformation of the internal world, who it is I think I am, how I see who I am, how it is I respond and perceive the world around me, this inner evolution. And it's that inner evolution for each of us individually that's going to allow differences, different ways of being together as two of those come together, as three or more of these people, these individuals, us, who are doing this inner work to free ourselves so that our uniqueness, the unique genius, the God self, if you want to put it in those terms, the part of us that is unconditioned by all of what it is that we have been given genetically, through culture, through our being raised up by our families and where we grew up. I see this in the work I do with my clients. It's amazing. I see this kind of development, this kind of growth, spiritual maturity as a process of removing that which does not belong. And as we remove that which does not belong, thoughts, beliefs, the trapped trauma of the past, deep-seated ideas of what's true and what's not, the need for surety becoming less, having a grip on us, more openness, more ability to perceive anew, to think anew. As all of these things begin to change, the person, their experience of themselves, their experience of life, and how they act in the world changes quite dramatically. Frees them up, frees us up for a more direct, unfiltered perception of life. More and more trust in life, the ability to be here, to be with another in a way that's less guarded. And this, I want to propose, is what's desperately needed right now. And for each of us, what that looks like is different. That's what is so cool for me to see this with people, is as each person gets less and less burdened by all of the programming, all of the old woundedness that is in us. There is a unique spark that begins to show more and more and more. At least here in these human bodies in this life, that essence of the divine is not the same. It's not the same. And these freed sparks, this freed consciousness, this uniqueness that is in you, I say, is desperately needed by life right now. Because we are going through a time where the old handles out in the world and in ourselves that we have grabbed onto to make sense of who we are, what's real and not, and how to act in the world are going away. This, to me, is the blessing of our times, because there's a lot about our world that does not work. So in order for these outer structures, ways of being, ways of creating life here together, in order for them to be created differently, they need to be created by different creators, by different versions of us, by more and more free, whole, perfect, complete versions of enough of us. So this vision was given to me many years ago in the form of seeing it that each of us was a unique puzzle piece. And there was a new puzzle that was going to be being created. And there were way more puzzle pieces here in the world than were needed to create this new picture. Didn't need everybody to become their true puzzle piece. Meaning me with this particular knob here and the notch here and this there, and that's my who I am, really. Not me holding on to something that I think I am, but I'm not. But actually who I truly am. Not as a conditioned being. And it's hard for me I'm trying to get better at explaining this in a way that you might be able to understand. And as I take people through this process, they begin to realize how much of how they thought things were and who they thought they were wasn't actually true. And they didn't know that they thought that way, because most of this operates outside of our ability to be aware of it. But luckily, we can use ways to get to the things that are in the way without needing to use our mind. Because otherwise we'd be screwed. We would. So, sorry, to not go on too long. So there is a unique version of you in there, divine. I would use that word. If you don't like that word, maybe authentic. It exists already. Thank God we don't need to create our authenticity. Think about that for a second. Because what's interesting for me is to watch how most of us go about thinking we need to figure it out. We need to figure out who it is we really are so we can do it. No, who we really are just needs to be freed so we can be it. And those more and more free versions of us are quite profoundly beautiful. Profoundly beautiful. They know what they're doing. They know why they're here. They have values that exist beyond our ability to, how do I say that? They don't come from structured belief systems. They come from something deeper. A heart freed of its pain, a heart freed of its programmed beliefs, we don't need to worry about it. We don't need to worry about it. It does not need rules. So I'm going to invite you to consider that there is something very, very, very important and needed that you've brought into this world. And your job, as I see it, is to free that and become it. And dare to find out, dare to have the courage to find out who you really are underneath there. Everybody I've worked with is surprised because we're so conditioned about what's possible, who we are and who we're not, and what we're capable of. So in the description for this video, I'm going to put one of the tools that I have my clients use to offer to you, and it has to do with targeting those things that are in the way of us expressing who we really are, that exist in us as old pain, old woundedness. And it's a way to find it and release it at the level of energy, not needing to understand it, not needing to figure it out, but allowing the wisdom that's in us, the wisdom that is dying to guide us. If we could just get out of thinking we have to figure it out long enough to let the wisdom that's already in us say, hey, this is the way you do it. In all of life. So there's a link down there to get your copy of this guided meditation. And it's something that if you want to take this seriously, you'll want to do often. And you'll find that you begin to see life differently. You begin to respond to life differently. Because how you perceive life, how you make sense of it, and how you act in the world gets less and less filtered through pain and limitation. Less and less filtered through self-doubt, lack of confidence, mistrust of self and the world. So thanks for listening today, and keep coming back. So I invite you to push subscribe, push the like button, and please share this video. I'm going to be sharing more about how we can each free who we truly are, because this is what's desperately needed right now, is you. The real you. The you just don't quite know yet. Wouldn't you like to meet who that is? I would too. So my name's Daniel Piatek. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.